A special thanks to J Hurl24 over on No Sleep for letting us use his story. You should check the description for the links to his work. Hey Jay, you ready? Carrie's voice woke me up. I sat up. How long was I out? I yawned. Carrie was setting up the camera. 2 hours, she said. Can you go make sure the front door is locked? Yeah, I said. When I walked into the lobby, I saw that it looked completely normal. The door was already locked. Hey, was the door already locked? I yelled behind me. Yeah, I locked it after Mary left, Carrie said. Why? It's still locked, I said. The silence was deafening. We both knew what we saw and what this meant. I'll check back here. Can you walk through the front areas and see if there's any sign of Will? She asked. I immediately got to work checking the windows and the door, just in case I missed anything on my first glance. Yeah, I made my way to the front desk. Everything was as it was. I remember thinking, how the fuck did Will get in and out without a trace? Lobby and front desk are clear, I said. I got to the last room I hadn't checked yet, the bathroom. I knocked on the door before opening it. No answer. I braced for the worst as I turned the door handle. When I swung the door open, it was dark. I inched my way forward, my heart pounding with every move, waiting for the motion sensor to kick the light on. My heart nearly shot out of my chest when it turned on. I looked around the small room and saw nothing. Bathroom is clear. All clear back here too, Carrie yelled. I walked back into her office and sat down on the couch. Was there any sign of someone coming in at all? She asked. Nothing, I sighed. How about back here? Same, she said. We sat in silence for a moment before Carrie leaned forward and grabbed her notepad. Only one thing left to do. I nodded. All right, I'm ready. With that, we started the second session. When she put me back under, she had me think back to when I ran into Smith and saw the guards pinned to the wall. I want you to tell me where the others went. Last session, you said, after you saw the lights went out. Immediately after, I was back in that moment. I looked at Smith and looked around. Where's everyone else? The two bodies were still on the wall in front of us, but there was no sign of the group we were just with. No clue, Smith said. There's not even a trace of anyone else. I looked around, and he was right. I looked behind us, and there were faint footprints leading to us, but none going back or away from us. It's like they just vanished, I said. I could see the worry on Smith's face. He shook it off and looked up and down the hallway in front of us. I don't see anything in either direction, he said. Let's go. I followed closely behind him and we made our way down the hallway. Everything went dark. Now go to where you left off last session, Carrie said. I immediately snapped to the moment the door opened and we saw the trail. Hey, Smith, where are we exactly? Smith looked absolutely confused. I have no idea. He looked around before turning around and walking over to the wall to our left. When I picked you two up, I drove you to our office in the city. He pointed at the emergency evacuation map on the wall in front of him. See right here? Will and I walked over to him. I immediately saw the "You Are Here" star, right next to where the door read First Avenue. This door is supposed to be used for emergency use only. It's red so that if you're inside, you know what doors lead outside. This is one of 3 doors that's also red on the outside, so that first responders know where they can pull in. So it leads to a trail? I asked. That's pretty stupid, Will added. There isn't even decorative bushes or trees on any of the surrounding streets from this office. Smith said, it's in the middle of the city, so no, at the moment, I have no fucking clue where we are now. We went back to the door and looked outside. It was nighttime. How many days has it been since you picked us up? I asked. Smith hung his head and sighed. About 3 days. Will looked at me and was clearly surprised by this. So where were we at this whole time? Will asked. We had you in a medical holding area, said Smith. While there, a series of tests were ran to make sure you were healthy. And? I asked. Well, they all came back negative for any issues, he said. I looked at my arms and hands, searching for any needle marks. I don't see any needle marks, I said. So what kind of tests were ran? We mainly ran sleep tests, scans of your brain. Leaves no physical marks, but lets us see if there are any issues, Smith explained. Will cleared his throat and said what we all were thinking. We need to stop procrastinating and go. Agreed, Smith and I said. We stepped through the door and onto the trail. When we got about 30 feet from the door, we heard a loud clang. No, Smith whispered. We all turned around and expected to see the red door. What the hell? I asked. Seeing the door, even closed, would have been better, but all that stood where the door should have been was more trees. Well, that's not good, Will said. What made it worse was with the door open, there was a light source. Now there was only darkness. What way do we go now? I asked. As the words left my mouth, I heard a loud crack in the distance. Will looked at Smith. Did you hear that too? Smith, who was pulling out his service pistol, said, Sure did. He turned on the flashlight and illuminated a group of large rocks a little ways in front of us. You two take cover there. I'm gonna scout ahead. Are you stupid? Will spat. That's a terrible idea. We are in the middle of the forest, don't know where we are, have been experiencing completely unexplainable things. Just heard a loud crack, and your idea is to just run off by yourself and see what's ahead of us. I could barely see Smith's face in the faint moonlight, but he looked embarrassed. Besides, do you know where that sound came from or what made it? I know I sure as hell don't. Jay, do you? I hadn't seen Will this worked up before, and it took me by surprise. No, I don't. Smith, he makes a good point. I was interrupted by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching us from the rear. Shh, Smith said. As quietly as we could, we rushed to the rocks and attempted to hide. When I got behind the rock, I felt Will grab my shoulder and kneel next to me. Stay low, he whispered. We sat there and listened as the footsteps walked right up to the rocks we were behind. I placed my hands over my mouth and held my breath. After a few seconds, I heard the sound of footsteps walking away. Me and Will sighed. Where's Smith? I asked, noticing it was only Will with me. Will felt around. That fucking idiot. Just then we saw a light shine from where we were gathered. I listened in horror as the footsteps went from walking to running. Bang. Smith's first shot rang through the air. He missed and hit the tree behind me and Will. Bang. Bang. 2 more shots missed their mark. The footsteps echoed through the forest. Why? I whispered. Jay will return. The woman's voice echoed in my head. Will looked at me. Did you hear it that time, or was it like a message implanted? Implanted, I said. Bang. Another shot rang out. The footsteps stopped and were followed by a soft crunch and a moan. Will nodded at me, and we both peeked over the rocks. I saw the dark shadow of something huge standing where Smith was. It threw something to the ground beside it. I heard a loud growl before it ran off, joined by 3 other figures, each one more imposing than the last. Let's go, Will said, grabbing my shoulder. I stood up, and we ran towards where Smith was. The sun was rising, and the light barely pierced through the dense trees, but it was enough to see the scene before us. Smith was on the ground next to a tree, his body broken. The look of pure horror would remain on his face until it was no more. Why'd you do this? I asked the body in front of me. Will stood there solemnly. He was doing what he thought would give us the best chance. I nodded slowly. Rest easy, Agent Smith. After a moment of silence, Will nudged my arm. Let's find some downed branches and at least cover him until we can get in contact with the crew to come back for him. All right. I looked around and gathered a couple of branches. When I reached down to grab the last one, I dropped the rest on the ground. Hey, Will, look at this, I said. I wiped away some moss to reveal deep carvings of straight lines. It didn't look like runes, numbers, or letters. What is it? Will asked. No idea, I said. But doesn't it look like the same kind of style as the carvings on the tree in the clearing? Yeah, but we could read those. I have no idea what it says, Will said. I looked closer at it and realized that there was a piece missing. Looks like it broke in half, long ways, and is missing the rest. Try and see if you can find the rest of it. Will nodded and began to look around where we were. It didn't take long. Found it, he said. I put the pieces together and could clearly read the inscription now. It's the rules Smith wrote. How is that possible? Will asked. No idea, I said. I think we need to. I was cut off by a piercing, high-pitched ringing in my ears. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was sitting in a chair. Will was right next to me and looked concerned. Hey, Jay, you good? I rubbed my eyes and took in my surroundings. Yeah, I'm all right. Where are we? I asked. The hospital, Will said. At least I think the hospital. Just then a man in a suit walked up to us. Will Jay, come with me, please. I was about to ask the man who he was and where we were, but Will elbowed my arm and shook his head. We stood up and followed him down the hall. We passed several rooms that looked enough like a hospital room, but something just felt off about them. There was all the normal equipment, but none of the rooms were numbered. We stopped at the end of a hallway in front of a room. This is your stop. The man motioned us into the room. I'll be back in a little bit to escort you two outside. When I stepped inside, I saw Ryan laying on the bed. The man walked away. Once I couldn't hear the faint footsteps coming from the hallway, I looked around the room. Will stood, frozen, just inside the room, his eyes fixed on Ryan. Hey guys, Ryan said. He wrote something down on a notebook he had on the table next to him. How are you doing? I asked. Ryan motioned to look down at the notebook. Will and I stepped closer to him and read the writing. Don't talk about anything. Not a hospital. Not real people. I sat down. Did the doctors say how long you have to be in here? Will asked. Ryan shook his head. No, they just keep telling me how I'm lucky to be alive. Don't know how I'm the lucky one. He continued to write in the notebook. Well, I'm glad you're all right, Will said. Ryan motioned down at the notebook again. I've been here for 2 weeks. Don't know where we are, but have figured out there's no cameras, but there are microphones. Where's the bathroom? I asked. Outside to the left, Ryan said. I got up and walked out the door. I looked down the hall to the left and saw the bathroom. Almost immediately after I took 3 steps out the door, I heard from right behind me. Can I help you? He asked. Just going to the bathroom, I said. Can I help you? He asked again. I turned to look at him and saw a different man in a suit standing behind me. A blank, uncanny expression on his face. Why? You want to hold it for me? I joked. Can I help you? He asked. No, sorry, I said before moving back towards the room. Can I help you? He said. I backed into the room, not taking my eyes off him. There was just something that didn't match up. When he asked if he could help me, there was no inflection to his voice reflecting someone asking a question. It was monotone, and his face was expressionless. Before I closed the door to the room, I looked him up and down one last time. The suit he wore seemed more like skin than clothes. It almost looked like something bigger was wearing what used to be a man as a skin suit. His eyes were empty, and his mouth was unnaturally small. yet seemed to be stretched over the bones underneath. "No, thank you," I said. What was weirder was that its mouth barely moved when it spoke. As I moved to close the door, Will looked at the figure in front of me. "Jay, get in here." I pushed the door closed as hard as I could. I briefly saw the figure stick his arm out in an attempt to stop me. I heard the door click shut and reached for the lock. "Fuck," I said. There wasn't a lock where I reached. "Will, do you see a lock anywhere on the door?" I asked. I was pushing with everything I had against the door to keep it closed. Will hurried to my side and reached above me. I heard something slide, followed by a metallic click. "You should be good now." "Thanks," I sighed. I looked up and saw a metal bar that was secured across the door, preventing it from being opened. I've never seen that in a hospital. Will handed me Ryan's notebook. "Look at this." I looked down expecting to see a message from Ryan, but saw pages of notes he had been taking. I turned to an empty page and wrote, "Help me find the microphones and turn them off." Will and Ryan read it and nodded. The three of us tore the room apart, but found 3 microphones. One under the bed, another in the light fixture, and the last one was behind a chair that was mounted to the wall. I looked at Ryan and wrote on the page, "Is there anything we can say that will test if we got all of them?" Ryan nodded and said, "So can I leave now?" We waited in silence. After about 10 minutes of nothing, Ryan spoke. "I think we are good now. If they were still listening, they would have come by now." "Holy shit, guys. Where the fuck are we?" I asked. "Last thing I remember, we were in the forest and now here." "Yeah, and I don't remember seeing a road or even a trail big enough for a car to pick us up," Will said. "We are still in the woods," Ryan said. "I remember being in the ambulance after you guys found me. About 5 minutes after we left, the ambulance stopped. The light inside flickered, and when I looked at the EMTs, they weren't what I thought. Their uniforms fit them like that thing in the hallway. Seemed more like skin. That's when I knew something was wrong. I got to the hospital, and a doctor met us at the door. All he could say was Ryan on repeat. I looked around and all I could see was trees. The parking lot was just a grass clearing. "What the fuck, man?" I said. "They brought me in here and left," Ryan said. After the first couple hours, a suit walked in and introduced himself as Agent Smith. He said that he was with DHS and that I'd be okay. After he left, the doctors... Will cut Ryan off. "Wait, what was his name?" He looked at me with anger and confusion in his eyes. He said his name was Agent Smith. "Why?" Ryan said. "Did he look real or like the others?" I asked. "He looked real. His suit was actually a suit, not like the other ones," Ryan said. "What happened after he left?" Will asked. "The doctors came in and connected me to these machines." Ryan pointed to the IV tube sticking out of his arm. When I looked closer at the IV, I noticed it wasn't a needle. It was just taped to his skin. I played along with their game for the first 2 days. After they started leaving me unsupervised for hours on end, I tried to escape. "How far did you get?" I asked. "I got to the front doors. Once I got outside, I noticed that there wasn't any sign of civilization visible. It was like this building was just dropped deep in the heart of the forest. I felt like staying here and playing along would be the safer option, but I explored the building before I came back to the room." "So, did you find anything interesting?" I asked. I looked at Will, who was obviously deep in his own thoughts. "There's a basement. I went to look down there, but when I opened the door, I heard talking, so I left. I also found the roof access," Ryan said. "I was able to get onto the roof without being stopped. When I looked around, it confirmed my thoughts from the front door." "When was the last time you saw Agent Smith?" Will asked. About 2 days ago," Ryan said. "How long did you say you've been here?" I asked. "About 2 weeks," Ryan said. "Why? What's up?" "We were just with Smith and watched something huge break him in half," Will said. "How is that possible? We just woke up a few days ago." "Let me ask you this," Ryan said. "How long was I gone?" "About 3 years," Will said. I could hear the pain in his voice when he said it. "For me, it's only been a few months," Ryan explained. "Time seems to work differently here. I have no idea why or how, but it does." When I looked closer at Ryan, I noticed something. He didn't look like how we found him. In fact, he looked healthy. Another thing that I realized was that he didn't question who I was or why I was here. Maybe it was because I was with Will and he trusted him. But based on everything that has happened to us, I know if I were in his shoes, I'd be questioning everything and everyone. I picked up Ryan's notebook again. "Hey, Ryan, when did you start writing things down here?" "About a day or two after I got in this room." "Why?" he asked. I flipped to the first page and began skimming the pages. "Just trying to get a grasp on this time issue. I'm seeing if there is anything you wrote down that might help." Most of the early pages were just observations. I got to a page titled Day 5 and felt a chill go up my spine. "You're the only one that's written in here, right?" I asked. "Yeah. Why?" Ryan said. I showed Will the page, his face turning red. "Why would you write J. Will return over and over and over again?" Will asked. "I did not write that," Ryan said, panic flooding his voice. I grabbed the book and kept looking through the pages. Day 10 was on the top of the last page I looked at. "Day 10, I said. I looked at Ryan and could see the mention of this day shot a look of worry across his face. I read out loud, "Agent Smith brought visitors today." I paused when I saw the next line. When I began reading again, my anger and confusion were clearly evident in my voice. "Will and Jay were brought into the room. They don't know where they are. They didn't stay long because Smith needed to leave and had to take them with him." I looked at Will. I don't remember this, do you? I asked. Will shook his head. Ryan, how many times have we come in here? He asked. Ryan sighed. This is the 4th time. Was day 10 the first time we met? I asked. Ryan looked at us in shock. Yeah, why? He asked. How did you know his name? Will asked. Ryan looked around like he was searching for an answer. He stammered. You told me. Just then, I heard footsteps approaching. Ryan took off the hospital gown he was wearing and revealed the uniform he wore. It was the same uniform me and Will wore, only it was completely intact. Where did we find you? I asked. In the forest. It was after I went missing with Will, Ryan said. Will checked the door. Lock is still there, so we have some time. He turned back towards Ryan. Then how did you know about the ambulance? His voice seethed with rage. I saw sweat begin to bead on Ryan's forehead. Because you guys flagged them down. Was it just an ambulance? I added. Ryan went from looking nervous to confused. Yeah, it was just an ambulance. Do you guys not remember? I looked at Will. He was just as confused as I was. Ryan snapped from confusion to realization. That wasn't you guys, was it? He said. Looking back, it was almost like you guys knew the ambulance would be there. I tried telling you we shouldn't walk on the trail, but both of you insisted it was safe. So there's land spirits, forest giants, shapeshifters, feds, and ghosts. That's what we've encountered so far, Will said. Now we have to worry about mimics. Is there any way out of here that isn't through the door? I asked. No, Ryan said. We all looked at each other and nodded. Well, guess there's only one way out. Wait, Ryan said. Where did you guys find me? There was a loud knock on the door. Can I help you? We heard the monotone voice of the creature on the other side. No time, I said. We need to go before any more show up. He's right, Will said. Will unlocked the door and counted down from 3 with his fingers. Let me go first. I'll guide us out, Ryan said. The door opened and the creature was standing there. Can I help you? Its arms reached for us. Its fingers were unnaturally long and came to a sharp point. Ryan kicked the thing in the stomach. It staggered backward, far enough for us to get around it. This way, Ryan yelled. We followed him down several hallways and a couple staircases. This should be the lobby. We walked through the door at the bottom of the last staircase. Anyone else think it's weird that we haven't encountered anything else? I asked. Don't jinx it, Will said. We walked through the small hallway and into a large open room. I could see the shadows of rows of chairs. Looks like a lobby to me, I said. There, that's the way out, Ryan said, pointing to a wall of windows across the room from us. The door should be right in the middle of those windows. We ran across the room, dodging chairs and tables. When we reached the windows, I saw the double doors. Finally, Will said. Looking around outside through the window, something didn't feel right. Wait, I said. Something's off. Getting here has been too easy. He's right, Ryan said. There's another door down this hallway, he said, pointing to our left. We walked over to the small hallway and saw the door he was talking about. Looks like a fire exit. I looked closer and saw the wire leading from a sensor on the door frame up to the fire alarm on the wall above it. Any chance that's still functioning? I asked. Don't really feel like finding out, Will said. Who knows what that alarm will attract? We made our way back to the front door. I'll go first and see if there is anything out there, Ryan said. Will slowly opened one of the doors and nodded at Ryan. If there's anything off, run back here and we can find another way. Ryan nodded back. Flag us down if it's safe. Ryan ran out of the building and made it to the tree line. We couldn't see him after that. Do we trust him? I asked. Will sighed. We have to. Who knows what the fuck is actually going on, but we just need to get back. We waited in silence for a few minutes. I tapped Will on the shoulder and motioned to him that I was going to check the stairs. He nodded, and I slowly made my way back. I cracked the door to the stairs and listened. I could hear the sound of scratching. Can I help you? Echoed from above. I shut the door again and hurried back to Will. Right as I got back to the door, Ryan was waving at us and gave a thumbs up. Let's go, Will said. As he opened the door, I turned to see the door of the staircase slamming open. Run, I yelled. We bolted out the door and met up with Ryan. We watched as the creature got to the door and stopped. Why isn't it coming out? Will asked. It can't leave, Ryan said. Let's go. We ran deeper into the forest. We stopped for a break when we couldn't see the building anymore. Fucking hell, I gasped. Okay, Ryan said. Where did you guys find me? Will and I looked at Ryan. We were doing a perimeter check and you were just laying on the road, but you didn't look like you do now, I explained. What does that mean? Ryan asked. You looked like someone sucked the life out of you, Will said. Your uniform was in tatters, and you were swollen and covered in cuts. Looked like you hadn't eaten in months, too. Wow, Ryan said. Look, right after that, Dee showed up and called for an ambulance. That's all we know, I said. Dee still works there? Ryan asked. Will and I looked at the ground. He did, Will said. What do you mean did? Ryan asked. Will told Ryan what happened to Dee and how we got here. There was solemn silence for a while. We need to get moving, Will said. Ryan nodded and we started walking. After an hour or so, the sun began to set, and our already limited visibility was quickly going away. We should make camp here, I said. We can carry on when the sun comes back up. Plus, we could use the rest. No, Ryan said. We need to keep moving. There hasn't been anything chasing us, but my running theory is that they use the cover of darkness. He's right, Will said. We need to keep going. Fine, I huffed. We slowed down and carefully walked to make as little noise as possible. After about 10 minutes, we came to a clearing. "Fuck," I whispered. "Yeah, I know. Let's go around it," Will said. "Don't want to risk anything." "Why don't we watch it for a minute?" Ryan asked. "Maybe it's the same clearing from before." "I hope not," I said. "If it is, that wouldn't be the worst thing," Will said. "We know how to get back if it is." "I guess you're right," I said. We crept to the edge of the clearing and looked around. It looked identical to the first one. There was a sapling in the middle of it, but something felt off. Familiar, but somehow different. "Wait here," Ryan said. "I'm going to go take a look at the tree." Before Will or I could react, Ryan was gone. "Fucking dumbass," Will whispered. We watched Ryan walk to the tree. He circled it for a moment before running back. "There's no writing on it," he said. "Then it's not," Will began to say. He was cut off by the sound of drumming. "Fuck. This is why I didn't want to go in there." The drumming grew louder and louder until it was deafening. We watched the clearing, but nothing happened. The drumming abruptly stopped. "What was that about?" Ryan asked. Before either of us could answer him, we felt the footsteps from behind us. "Run," I said. "Those are the same footsteps that got Smith." The three of us stood up and started running. We ran straight to our right. I looked back to see how far away we were from the clearing when I heard Will yell, "Stop!" When I looked back ahead, I saw we had stopped right on the edge of the same clearing. How the fuck is it here? I know we didn't turn and should be a ways away from it now. "Is it a different one?" I asked. "No, it's the same one," Ryan said. "It literally just appeared." I felt a sharp pain in my head, followed by the all too familiar voice. "Jay, Will, return." I dropped to my knees and looked to see Will did the same. The same heavy footsteps from earlier shook the ground behind us. I tried to get up, but something was holding me down. "I'm stuck," I yelled. I looked at Will and saw him also struggling to get up. Same here. The footsteps passed us by, and I watched as this massive shadow moved past us into the clearing. My head moved to look at Ryan. My movements were not in my control. "Why?" I shouted. Will screamed in pain. We were forced to look at Ryan. Only it wasn't the Ryan we arrived there with. "How?" Will cried. Ryan began to morph into the broken and tattered man we found lying on the road. "Help me," he cried. "Jay, Will, return." The voice spoke again. We watched in horror and agonizing pain as Ryan was lifted off the ground by an unseen force and floated to the center of the clearing. When he reached the tree, I saw the glint of something in his hand. There was a shadow standing next to him. "Ryan," I yelled. The shadow reached its arm towards Ryan, and he dropped the item in his hand. It landed at the base of the tree. Something deep inside me knew what it was, but I didn't want to believe it. "Will is Will cut me off. Yeah, it is. The voice spoke again. Jay, Will, returned. There was a loud crack, and the shadow, the massive figure, and Ryan vanished. I felt my body go limp and fell forward. Hunched over on my hands and knees, I looked at Will. Let's get the fuck out of here. Will didn't say anything in response. We stood up and ran in the direction of the jail. It felt like we were running for hours. I see lights ahead, Will exclaimed. I could hear the relief and excitement in his voice. I heard voices in the distance. Will, stop, I whispered. You hear that? Ryan? Will's voice echoed through the trees. Only Will was next to me, and it wasn't him. Will put his finger to his lips. Shh. We sat in silence as we heard our voices. When we saw Will, Dee, and I walk past us, we got up and made our way towards the parking lot. Just before we got to the edge of the tree line, Will stopped. That's weird, he said. Don't remember that ever being here. I looked ahead and saw what he was talking about. There were two trees that had fallen against each other. The branches intertwined, making a perfect archway. Huh, I said. That is weird. Well, both ways around it are completely blocked off, Will said. I could see the parking lot through the opening of the arch. Guess we have to go through it. Looking at the ground leading to it, I noticed the ground that was previously overgrown with foliage had cleared, forming a path right into the center of the arch. It's a natural arch, Jay, Will said. His voice had a slight shakiness to it. Yeah, I know, I said, but there's no other way around it. Just then, a loud, blood-curdling scream echoed through the trees. Fuck it, Will said. We stepped onto the path that had formed, and I felt the ground begin to buzz. That's not good, I mumbled, feeling my whole body begin to vibrate. I began to move forward, the vibrating getting stronger with each step. I can't, Will said. He looked to me and tried to move, but he couldn't. By the fifth step, I realized neither of us were in control of our movements. What the fuck? I asked. A ball of light formed in the center of the opening and grew to fill the archway. It's a fucking portal, Will said. Once the light finished growing, I could see daylight on the other side. Jay, Will, returned. The woman's voice was seemingly coming from all around us. Will was one step in front of me. When he was right in front of the arch, I heard the deafeningly loud drumming return. I'll see you on the other side, Will said as he stepped through the light. I was right in front of it when I felt a massive hand on my back pushing me into the portal. I felt a sharp pain all over as I fell through the light. When I opened my eyes, I was in the back seat of Will's car. What happened? I asked. When you came through, you hit your head on a rock and got knocked out. No cuts or injuries, so I loaded you up into my car, Will said. I looked out the window and saw it was night again. We're almost to your house. I saw the sign from my street. Thank you. Then everything went black again. When I opened my eyes, I was back in Carrie's office. She was sitting in her chair, just staring at me. "Holy shit," she said. I rubbed my eyes. "What?" I asked. "That was," she said, "a lot. Try living it, then reliving it." I laughed. "How long was that one?" 7 hours, she said. "Why didn't you stop me at 4? I asked. "You wouldn't let me," she explained. "When I tried to pull you out, you told me to keep going." "Oh," I said. Carrie reached to turn off the camera, and the lights went out. "Fuck," she said. In the middle of the room, a white orb of light appeared. "Jay remembers." The orb flickered as the voice spoke. "Yeah, I remember," I said. "What do you want from me?" I asked. The orb hummed for a moment before blinking out of existence. The lights came back on. "What the fuck was that?" Carrie asked. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going to find out. I need to know what they want with me." I stood up, grabbed my phone, and texted Mary to come pick me up.